Hey gang, Uncle Todd Sunny here, and this week we are taking a look at a Caveman on the Rampage flick. This is by Arch Hall Sr., starring his son, Arch Hall Jr. The title is Eegah. Now, Arch Hall Sr. Earlier in his career was a sort of a bit player, supporting roles in films, mostly B-westerns. He did have a small part in the serial Dick Tracy Returns, but most of his credits consist of like The Lone Rider's Ghost Town, Billy the Kid Wanted, His Brother's Ghost, and Border Badman. Those were all in the 40s. Now, in the late 50s, into the early, through a lot of the early to mid 60s, he turned his eye to producing, directing, acting in. But the main focus on these films was to promote his son, Arch Hall Jr., who could play guitar and sing a bit, and he wanted to make him into the next Elvis. Not a bad thought, Elvis was pretty big back in the early 60s when most of these films were made. So he produced The Choppers, which was Hall's first, and then Wild Guitar, which was the most Elvis-like of the films, where Arch Hall Jr. was a hopeful trying to break into the music business and having to deal with the nefarious shenanigans that go on in the recording industry. Then he starred in, of course, then he did Eegah, probably his most well-known film. Then came Hall Jr.'s best work, The Sadist, based on, I believe, John Starkweather, a notorious killer that ran off with a girl after killing her parents. It was also the basis for the film I'll put it down here, and for the Bruce Springsteen song Nebraska. Then there was the spy spoof, The Nasty Rabbit, in which Arch Hall Jr. played a undercover agent. In his cover, he was a rock and roll musician, of course. What else? Well, they thought of doing that with Elvis in some of his movies. Could have called him Johnny Danger. Well, that's just me. Then there was Hall's final film, or Hall Jr.'s final film, the Western Deadwood 76. Now, Wild Guitar also was a major directorial effort by Ray Dennis Steckler, who would help, or who Hall Sr. would help, and produced his film The Thrill Killers, as follow-up to The Incredibly Strange Creatures that stopped living and became mixed-up zombies. Now, Hall Sr.'s last film he produced was The Now People. As for Hall Jr., he became a commercial pilot, which he did till his retirement. At which point, someone convinced him to put a band together and go on tour as Arch Hall and the Arrows again, which was his band name. And he did that. And it wasn't like a big major tour. It was a lot of, small clubs and places, just for the fans that grew up and kind of liked him. And he had 2 final film appearances playing the character of Paul Wicker in Lamb Feed and then the anthology follow-up Last American Horror Show. Now, the big name in this film is Richard Kyle. He is, of course, well known to movie fans for playing Jaws, the assassin with the metal teeth in the James Bond films The Spy Who Loved Me and Moonraker. His other work had included playing a alien creature in Phantom Planet. He had bigger roles in like the Elvis film Roustabout, which was set at a carnival, so of course, what are you going to hire Richard Kiel to be? Strongman. And of course, Human Duplicators, where he played an alien robot coming down to take over the world. He also did a lot of TV work. He played a Frankensteinian creation in an episode of The Monkees. He was a recurring character, Voltaire, in the first season, Wild Wild West. He was the assistant, bodyguard, gopher of Michael Dunn's Dr. Megalitho Lovelace. And he was a monster a few times on Kolchak the Night Stalker, and even appeared on an episode of Simon and Simon. Now, one of my favorite films of his is So Fine, where that basic plot is he's a very jealous husband, and Ryan O'Neal is caught with his wife, who he didn't realize was married, and then there's this whole plot about him accidentally ripping the 2 small jeans he put on to get away, starting a fashion trend. And my favorite part is, Ryan O'Neal's a college professor. My favorite part is when the wife, who's in love with him now, replaces an ailing opera singer, because she herself is an opera singer. And then Richard Kiel knocks out the lead. They're doing a cello, so he has to make up his face. And then he comes out, that giant form, and they have an argument to song entirely in Italian with subtitles on the bottom. Yeah, very funny film. And Kyle had a flair for comedy, give him that. Our film opens up with the girl Roxy, who is driving to meet her father for lunch at his club where they live, and comes upon a startling sight. Pretty tough caveman there. Gets knocked out, hit by a car, and gets back up. Well, his investigation of this strange thing, a woman, gets interrupted by the speeding arrival of her boyfriend Tom in his hopped up car, dune buggy. So Eegah runs off, and Tom takes Roxy to the club, where she tells her father, Mr. Miller, all about what she saw. Now, Tom's not sure what to think. Their guest scoffs at her, but Mr. Miller, he's not so condescending. There are strange things. He's investigated them, written books about them. So he has Roxy take them out to where this happened the next morning to investigate.
There's the heel, and there's the toe.
Look at the size of that.
Well, that's enough to convince Mr. Miller. So he gets on his safari outfit, charters a chopper, goes out into the desert with his camera to go look for this giant. And he finds a campsite. And while taking pictures,
boys are getting me down.
Come on, you gotta admit, that is funny. That was one of the worst falls I've ever seen. Anyways, we don't know what happens to the good doctor. Or is he? Well, we don't know what happens to Mr. Miller. Next, we cut to the pool at the club, where while Roxy is showing off her new bikini, Tom sings a song about some girl named Vicky. Not sure why that would impress his girl, since her name's Roxy. Anyways, after his song, she gets a distressing call from the helicopter pilot.
That was Mr. Kruger from the airport. The helicopter blew a gasket or something. He won't be able to pick Dad up.
At Deep Canyon?
Yes.
No problem. We'll get the dune buggy and we'll whiz right out there.
It's at this point in our story that we get a long sequence of Tom and Roxy zipping through the desert over and under the dunes to a punchy little surf-style instrumental supplied by Hall and his band to basically string this thing out to a feature length. They finally make it to Dead Rock Canyon, and her father's not there. So they're going to spend the night. Maybe something came up, he's got delayed, and he'll be there in the morning. At which point, while they're laying out on their bedrolls,
Sex.
no. This is a film from the 60s for teenagers at the drive-in. They ain't gonna show that. Anyways, after a brief spat, as couples do, Tom wins her back over by singing a song about a girl named Valerie, who he wants to open a gallery for. 2 ballads in a row. When are we going to get some rockers here? Anyway, that night they are visited by the giant. Roxy sees him, and her scream scares him off. And Tom kind of scoffs. That is, until...
What'd you do that for?
Listen, if he comes back for that club, we don't want to be anywhere around here.
Yeah, he is showing some brains there for first time. Well, the next morning, father doesn't show up, so they start to search for him. And eventually they come to this rather mountainous area. So Tom leaves her in the car in the dune buggy while he goes up around and looks. At which point Eegah comes up behind her and grabs her. Takes her to his cave, where Mr. Miller is. He's got his arm in a sling, but other than that, he's unhurt. It's here that we learn that the caveman's name is probably Eegah, since he says that a lot. There's some mummified people in the corner, probably relatives that he's outlived due to the sulfur-infused water of his cave. But Eegah's taken quite an interest in Roxy.
Take it easy.
Dad!
Don't do anything to scare him.
Me scare him?
Smile.
Sex.
Oh, yeah. Spent thousands of years. He's a little pent up. Well, he is. Anyway, we then get another long stretch to eat up running time with Roxy trying different ways to get his mind onto something else. She has him show her all the mummified people and he introduces her to him. And then she feigns being hungry, so he gives her this huge thing of meat and then water, the sulfur water. And then finally, she ends up having shaved her father to entertain Eegah. He wants a shave too, so she shaves him. At which point, this is all intercut with shots of Tom running around the desert, yelling out her name, firing off his shotgun. And eventually, Eegah's waited long enough, and he wants her, but she convinces him to take her outside for it because she doesn't want to do it in front of him, her father, thinking she can get away. Not that easy. I think we can skip the rest of that sequence. Let's get to Mr. Miller trying to rescue her. Luckily, this drives off Eegah. Unfortunately, he takes Roxy with him. So, Tom sends Mr. Miller down to his car to get it started, and he heads out after Eegah. And we get a confrontation. Okay, that's a problem. But Tom isn't exactly out of options. Yeah, he took out the most sympathetic character. Short film.
And there was much rejoicing.
Whew. Thought he was a goner there. Well, anyway, he's not about to give up on Roxy. So, even though they make it back to Tom's dune buggy and they start speeding away, he gives chase. Sadly, he is no match for modern technology. But he's not one to give up. He still has her scent from a scarf she left behind or something, and so using that he heads into the civilization, where we get a bunch of crazy caveman antics.
The keys. I've had enough.
All these problems are getting me down. All these problems are getting me down.
Hey, wait a minute, friend. What is this, a masquerade?
That is Miller's giant, darling.
Oh, come on, you can talk plainer than that. Look out, Mr. Cushman, he's for real. What did he say?
He's real.
Of course, he's real.
All these problems are getting me down.
Anyway, because of all that disturbance, of course the police get called. Now, over at the Millers, they had decided that they weren't going to tell anyone about Eegah. Better he just stay there in the desert. But Roxy's kind of down, so in order to take her mind off of it, Tom throws a big shindig with his band playing, and we get the rockin' tune, The Old Town Road. And this weird sequence. Do most bands carry around a couple of spare guitarists so that the leader and his rival can then go and fight over Roxy? Luckily, Eegah shows up to show they don't have a claim on Roxy like he does.
Come on, you guys.
Eegah! Eegah!
And there was much rejoicing.
Sadly, the police show up to put a stop to all this. Oh, it must end the way all such things must end. Well, everyone looks on sadly. We get a pithy statement from Mr. Miller.
Yes, he was real. It says so in the book of Genesis. There were giants in the earth in those days. Chapter 4, verse 32.
Wow. He took a Bible quote completely out of context. Things haven't changed much, have they? Anyway, that was Eegah. And it is considered one of the worst films of all time. You know, it's in that Golden Turkey Award book and some other things. It's considered one of the top 50 worst films, up there with Plan 9 and Robot Monster, some other things. It's not a great film. I'm not even sure I could call it a good film. It's amusing for all the wrong reasons. The comedy isn't quite as funny as just the absurdity of the film itself. Archall Jr. would be the first to tell you he's not really much of an actor. And he kind of shows it here. But I don't know, his father kept wanting to cast him as, you know, good-looking hero type, romantic lead and all that. But as I said earlier, he's much better as a sadistic villain. You know, I'm going to have to review The Sadist one of these days. Well, moving on. The actress who played Roxy actually was not a trained actress, of course. She was actually Archall Sr.'s secretary. Of course, Richard Kyle, even here in these early days, gives the best performance in the film. And he doesn't even have any real dialogue. All of his grunts and things were dubbed in later. But just his expressions. Oh, the heartbreak he shows when he loses Roxy. See? That tugs at the old heartstrings there, doesn't it? There's not much really to say about this film. It's not that great a film. As I said before, drags in a lot of places. A lot of footage is filled up with just stuff. Endless scenes of driving and the whole sequence where she's trying to distract Eegah with all these different methods. It's only there to drag it out to an hour and a half length. And it shows, because it doesn't do anything for the plot. It really only gets going in the last maybe 10 minutes when he starts going around in modern society and causing havoc. But yeah, that's really all there is to say about this film. I forgot the most interesting thing about Arch Hall Sr. Have you ever heard of a film called The Last Time I Saw Archie? It was a service comedy starring Robert Mitchum, co-starring Jack Webb, who also directed. And it is about this kind of Sergeant Bilko style character who gets into all these schemes while in service while they're stationed overseas. It was based on the experiences the screenwriter had with Arch Hall Sr. in the military. Arch Hall himself was not too impressed by this. I mean, he liked the film. He thought it was a good representation of himself because he was being played by Mitchum and he came off all cool and suave and tricky. But it also made a lot of money. So he sued. And he apparently got quite a payout. Although the exact details and amount isn't known. And Arch Hall is such a likable person that the filmmakers weren't even mad at him about it. They said it's just, yep, that's Arch. Please hit like, share, and subscribe, and stay after the credits for my favorite scene.